Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, is that Ethan?
Yeah.
Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Good.
Good. My name's Sophie, and then I think we've got Isabella as well.
Hi.
Hi, Isabella. How are you?
Good.
Good. Lovely to meet you both. And then I think by the looks of things, we've got another Max. Max, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You can. Hi, Max. Lovely to meet you. My name's Sophie. I think everyone is just joining us, so we'll just wait for everyone to come in. So we've got Ethan saying hi in the chat, and then we've got who's just joined us, Aiden. Hi, Aiden.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Sophie. Lovely to meet you. So we've actually got quite a few of us in the class today, so I'll just tick you guys off for having come, and we've got another Isabella coming in. We've got Isabella Z and Isabella T. So let's see if she's in. Hopefully she's on the way in. Who have we got there? Isabella. We've got Isabella T as well. Can you hear me? Is she just connecting? Hi, Isabella. How are you? Isabella T we've got. Hi, how are you? Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Perfect. And then who have we got that's just joined us? Aiden. Hi, Aiden.
How do you know my name?
Because I can see it on the bit at the bottom.
Why do you not close your eyes and try and guess?
I could have tried to guess, but I did know that it was you because I could see. And just quickly, okay, we've got two Isabellas. Are you both Isabella, or are you Izzy's, or are you anything else? No, just Isabella.
Yes.
Brilliant. And same for the one. Okay, cool. So
I
we're
know
gonna
Max I know 3 Maxes: my little brother, my friend Max, and Max Birdle. So one of them is Max Lou, my little brother.
Yeah.
Max Nufito, my friend. Max Birdle is another one.
Okay, so what we'll do
Not
is
my brother. Max
Isabella
Birdle is
then.
my brother. He's just a friend.
Okay, cool. So also just quickly before we start, I'll just check if we've got anyone else coming in as well. Just want to go over a couple of class rules, just because there's quite a lot of us in this class today. So I think the best thing to do is it'd be lovely if you all had your cameras on the whole time. That would be really, really nice so I can see your faces. And if anyone ever has a question, I think the best thing to do is either pop up your hand like this and I'll be able to see you, or raise the hand emoji, or message me in the chat and I'll be able to see it. So I can see that Isabella Z has very nicely put her hand up, so I can see that she has a question. So yes, Isabella, what is your question?
No, I haven't really got a question. I was just practicing, and I know 2 Izzy's. And Izzy, that's not in my school, who has just left my school, and then Izzy, that's my class.
Oh wow, very good. So we've got lots of Izzy. So let me just check who we've got here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Aiden says he can't turn his camera on. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So I think, Aiden, the best thing to do for you is if you have a question, just pop it in the chat there at the bottom, or just message me or something else. That's easier. Okay, cool. And can everyone hear me okay? That's all fine. Just give me a thumbs up. Brilliant. Perfect. Great. So let's get started. So let me just share my screen. So sorry, it's all in the way. Slideshow, play from the start. So today, what we're going to be doing is this is the beginning of our story writing set that we're going to do together. So we've got 5 classes over the course of the week. So hopefully by the end of it, you guys will be experts on kind of creative writing and writing stories. So what we're going to do is we're kind of doing it piece by piece. So today, obviously, we're starting at the beginning of the story. So we're going to look at how to begin writing a story. And then later on throughout the week, we'll have a look at characters. We'll have a look at lots of different things so we can slowly build your story together. And hopefully by the end of the week, you guys will be experts. So if anyone does have any questions or anything else, do just let me know, because I can't see all of your because there are so many of us, I can't see everyone's faces on the screen. So just also feel free, if your hand's been up for a while and I haven't noticed you, just feel free to turn your microphone off and just shout out if I haven't noticed you yet. Cool. So let's have a look at what we're going to be doing today. So I thought firstly, because we're going to be spending all week together, I thought what it might be nice to do is it might be nice for you all to introduce yourself to the rest of the class, because maybe some of you might have had classes together before, maybe some of you haven't. So I thought what it might be nice to do is just to introduce ourselves to everyone else. And then something that I think is really good is it's really nice sometimes for you to get book recommendations from the rest of your class. And that can be quite a nice thing to do as well, because you might not have heard of some books, someone might be able to recommend you on. So what I thought we could do is we'll just go around the class and introduce yourself and tell us what your favorite book is, or a book that you've really enjoyed, and maybe just why you'd recommend it. So I know there are quite a few of us, so we'll go around quickly and see. But I'll start. So for those of you that didn't catch my name, so my name's Sophie, and a book that I really enjoyed when I was your age. I was a really big fan of the Michael Morpurgo books, but I think Roald Dahl was my favorite author, and I think that my favorite book would probably have been Matilda. So what we'll do is we'll go around. So I'll just call out your names. So it's kind of tricky because we've got 2 Aidens. So I know that we've got Aiden Lee and Aiden. So why don't we start with Aiden? Why don't you introduce yourself to the rest of the class and tell us about a book that you've recently enjoyed or your favorite?
Which Aiden is it?
You Aiden.
I like playing games, and I'm right now reading the 25 story treehouse, which is this one.
Oh, brilliant. So for everyone else in the class, that's the 52 story treehouse. And
if you look at the back, it's very funny.
Wow, and who's that by, Aiden?
Which one? You mean the one with the mirror?
Who's the author of that one?
Oh, the author is... So they wrote the book.
Ah, brilliant. Okay, that's lovely to meet you, Aiden. Thank you very much.
So the one that wrote the book is Andy Griffiths, and the one that make the pages is Terry Denton.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Aiden. And I'm going to say quick, I know that was brilliant. For the rest of us, let's kind of get through this a bit quickly because we've got so much to do today. So that was brilliant, Aiden. And then we've got Aiden Lee. Why don't you just introduce us very quickly and just tell us your favorite book?
I'm Aiden Lee, and the book I'm reading at the moment is Horrid Henry.
Horrid Henry, brilliant. I used to love the Horrid Henry books. And would you say you're more like Horrid Henry or Perfect Peter?
Perfect Peter.
That's good. I'm very glad to hear that, Aiden. That's brilliant. And then we've got Ethan.
My name is Ethan. I'm 7 years old and I'm in year 2. And my favourite books are Roald Dahl, such as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and The Magician's Nephew.
Ooh, very exciting. Well, Ethan, you'll be very pleased to know that we're going to be looking at a bit of Roald Dahl later on in the week. Yeah, so that's really good. Brilliant. Thank you, Ethan. And then we've got Isabella Z. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your favorite book?
I'm 8 years old. The book I'm reading now is called Bronze and Sunflower. I like the Harry Potter book series best.
Me too. I love the Harry Potter series. Thank you very much, Isabella. And then we've got Isabella T.
I feel Harry Potter is scary.
Ooh, I don't even know who said that. Yeah, it is, Aiden. It is a bit scary, but there are still good books.
So I kind of feel it's scary because every time when I watch it, I just hide behind the couch.
Yeah, behind the couch. It is a little bit scary. So Isabella T, you are off next. Isabella T, what's your favorite book? Oh, introduce yourself and tell us your favorite book.
My name is Isabella Sank, and I like Harry Potter book too.
Yeah, Harry Potter books too. Very good. The Harry Potter books popular. And then have we got Matt?
I like
Sorry, what did you say, Isabella?
Harry Potter books.
I like part 1.
You like part 1 of is that of the Deathly Hallows?
No, the first one's the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, you mean the very first book? Yeah, the Philosopher's Stone. That's a good one. So go on, Max. Why don't you kick us off? What's your favorite book? You like Harry Potter too? And which book is your favorite of the Harry Potter books?
The Goblet of Fire.
Goblet of Fire. Good choice. And then I've
also read all the Tree Houses.
You've read all the Tree Houses too. Brilliant. And then I think that we don't have a Mercedes in this class, do we? Has everyone spoken that's been here? Yeah, has everyone spoken? Brilliant. Okay, well, there are 2 people missing from our class, but that's okay. Brilliant. Well done, guys. That was really, really good. It's very interesting to hear all your favorite books. Those are lots of books that I've enjoyed as well, so that's always good. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at the fundamental kind of basics of story writing and creative writing. And this is something that's going to be very important when you guys are looking at later on. You'll kind of be doing like entrance exam and kind of 11 plus papers. And these are very, very important because I do quite a lot of marking for some of those. And sometimes one of the biggest issues that I see is that people kind of struggle with their plot line a lot. And I think the plot line is an incredibly important part of your story. So is that a hand up, Aiden? Yeah, did you have a question?
It's not quite a question, but my friend have done a 11 plus exam, but he hasn't started it yet.
Yeah, so I think lots of people are doing lots of practice for those at the moment. Yeah, but you guys.
And just to say, you only get it at the end of year 5. Yeah,
I know, you only get it at the end of year 5. I know that. So you guys have still got ages, because I know that most of you are a bit younger than that. But can anyone tell me, so we're going to have a look at the story plot line today. So this is going to kind of be our introduction into story writing. Can anyone tell me what a story plot is? So can anyone know what the plot line of a story is? Have we got any hands up? Anyone what a plot line is? So I know that we've got someone that's just joined us. Hi, I could not quite sure how to pronounce your name. Just joined us. It's spelled Xiaoyi. She's just joined us. Yes, Ethan. Ooh. Ethan, do you have a question?
Is it the story plot an introduction?
Kind of. So your story plot, I'll get back to you in Ethan 1 second. That was a really good attempt, and thank you so much for answering that question. And guys, I really would encourage you, just like Ethan has done. Ethan's been a model pupil right now by putting his hand up, which is brilliant, and answering the question. So if you could all give that a go. I'm just trying to work out who our new student is. Can you give me a wave?
My name's Xiaoyi.
Xiaoyi, it's lovely to meet you. So don't worry, you haven't missed anything too much. We just said, can you tell us what your favorite book is?
My favorite book is the Tom's Midnight Garden.
Tom's Midnight Garden, that's such a good choice. Wow. So it's lovely to meet you, Xiaoyi. So what we're doing, I know Aiden, I can see your hand is up, don't worry, I'm about to ask you. What we're doing is we're looking at what story plot lines are. So I think Aiden, can you tell us what you think a story plot is? Have you got Aiden there? Yeah.
I think a story plot is something, it's like a mountain. You have the main part where you have to choose 3 characters and where it starts and how dark is it or light, and then you go for opening, then build up, and then it's just so much hard to remember. I only done it in my English book.
No, that is exactly right. You've absolutely nailed put the nail on the head there, because we're going to be looking at story mountains later. And I think Isabella is there anything else that you can add to that?
So a story plot is kind of like it's kind of like a house. It's kind of like a brick house of 3 stories. The first story is the beginning. The second one is kind of like the problem, and where it's solved, and the third part is the ending.
Good, exactly. So well done, Isabella. And then I think Shawi's going to add one more thing, and then we'll go through it. So yeah, Shawi, what would you like to say?
Our story plot is a plan, and then so we can plan our story. So while if we had no plan, then in the middle of story you got to think and then write, and then think and then write.
Brilliant, well done. So thank you very much to everyone that contributed. That was brilliant. So a story plot. So those of you who've got it really, that you've done a really good job there, and we will be looking at story mountains as well, which is to come. So your story plot is the sequence of events that makes up your story. So it's what compels your reader to either keep turning the pages of your book or your novel or anything else. And so what I want you guys to think of, I want you to think of your plot as the engine of your novel. So the thing that drives your story. So when you guys are doing your creative writing, just like a car, the engine is the most important part, and it's going to be the thing that kind of propels your story, because there's no point in having kind of really good characterization and some really excellent descriptions if your story just isn't interesting and people don't want to read it. So a successful story has kind of 2 questions. So it answers what happens and what does this mean? And so we'll be looking at how to make a good story plotline and something compelling that's going to keep your readers on. So can anyone think of a couple of different plot types? Now, this is a bit of an abstract question, so don't worry about it. We're going to go through. But can anyone think of a kind of like general plot story? Don't worry if you can't. We'll go through these. It's a bit of a tricky question. I think we'll start going through them because we don't have too much time anyway. So there are lots of different kind of plots that you might have. So for example, one of the plot lines that you might have is overcoming a monster. So you might have a protagonist which sets out to defeat an antagonist force, such as James Bond or Dracula or Star Wars. Then you might have something like a rags to riches. So you have a kind of poor protagonist who acquires power and wealth and then loses it all and then gains it back. So that's a kind of common theme as well. So for example, you might have in that one Cinderella, or you might have Aladdin, or you might have a quest. So this is where the kind of characters of the story set out to acquire an important object or get to a certain location. So an example of that might be the Iliad or Lord of the Rings. Is that a question? No, that's not a question, don't worry. And then you might have voyage and return. So protagonists might go out to a strange land, and after overcoming threats, it might return with some experience. So for example, you might have Alice in Wonderland, or you might have The Lion King. So you can see kind of how a lot of the popular stories that you guys will have read or things that you would have looked at kind of have a specific arc of a plot line. So it's kind of like fundamentally, there's always going to be a basis to your plot. And it could be one of these things. It doesn't have to be, of course, but these are just kind of some of the key themes that you might be able to pick out. And don't worry as well, I upload the slides at the end, so I'll upload all of this, so we'll be able to look at that as well. Did you have a question, Aiden? Or was that just a hand wriggle? Don't worry.
I'm just saying, I have heard of a quest, and I have played a game of a quest where it's kind of called Play Quest in Roblox, where you have a quest where you have to complete it, and then it brings you back, so you get to create your own games, but you level up at the same time as well.
Wow, that sounds like a very good game. That's very cool. So you can kind of see as well, you might even have a plot line to a game or a story as well. So that's really good. So I think we've got one more page of these. So for example, you might have another kind of theme to your story, or it might just be comedy, might be a bit comedic, a bit funny, but I think that'll be less of what you guys are doing. It's just one of the ones that I found. Or you might have tragedy. So the protagonist could be a hero with a major character flaw or a great mistake, which is ultimately their undoing. So that might be Romeo and Juliet. Or another thing you might have is rebirth. So this is an event which forces the main character to change their ways and often become a better individual. So I'm sure the one that you guys will know best here is either The Frog Prince or Beauty and the Beast. So can everyone see kind of how you can have these different kind of arcs and different plot lines? And this isn't necessarily a plot line that you guys have to choose. We're going to have a look at some story mountains later, but they're just some examples of some kind of fundamental underlying plots that you can choose, or kind of they might spark some kind of creative ways that you guys could think about plots. So the key features of a plot. So we've just got a question. Okay, Aiden says he can turn his camera on now. Brilliant. So the key features of a plot. So what I want you guys to do is when you start thinking about your stories at the beginning, I want you to think about what is needed to make a good plot. So this is the kind of first thing I want you to think about. Obviously, your characters are very important. Your setting is very important. All of that is amazing. But I really want you to think about first, what do you need to make a good plot? Because the plot not only gives out the layout of the story, but also is the key components that build your story. So I kind of want you to think, as Isabella said earlier with the house, and someone else said earlier with, I can't remember what else it was, a kind of mountain, I think we had from Aiden, and a kind of another way of thinking about it. I want you to think of your story as being made up of several key blocks that kind of pile on top of each other. So we've kind of talked about earlier, I know everyone's kind of spoken about the kind of different blocks that we need for a story. So kind of like introductions and kind of like building it. So you kind of build it from your introduction to your characters to something happening. So that's really good. So I think is everyone feeling, if you just give me like a little, put your thumbs up if you're feeling confident about it, a kind of thumb this way if you're kind of feeling, oh, we want to go over plot lines a bit more, just understanding it, or down if you're thinking, oh, I'm very unhappy about plot lines, please can we go over it again? And it doesn't matter what you're feeling. Okay, let's see. So guys, can you hold them up? Okay, so we've got kind of middles. Okay, fine. So I think what we'll do is we'll just keep talking about it. And I think hopefully it will make a little bit more sense as we go through the plot building blocks. So just to reiterate, let's just go back to this one. So just to reiterate, your story plot line is the sequence of events that makes up your story. So for example, can anyone tell me the story plot line of one of the books that they were talking about earlier? So someone tell me. So we've talked about all of our favorite books that we talked about earlier. Can anyone explain to me within the concept of their favorite book or a book that they talked about what the plot line is? Yes, Isabella.
In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the first one is about Mr. and Mrs. Dursley and all the characters in. The second one is kind of like about all the drama and what happens later. The third one is the exciting part, and sometimes when the bad things happen, and the end part is sometimes if it's a tragedy, it will be a very sad one, like death, or a happy part, like the character ends up alive.
Okay, so we've got, thank you very much, Isabella. So Isabella's given us the example of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So this is a really, really good book or a good film for anyone that's seen it. So the plot within Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is the sequence of events that are made up. So for example, in the very introduction of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, we're introduced to the Dursleys, who Harry lives with, and Harry himself. And that's a really interesting part of the plot. So we've got the characters. But at the beginning, it's not necessarily that interesting a story if they're, it's just a boy whose parents had died and they're living with their cousins. That's an interesting story, but kind of the interesting parts of what happens next. So the next thing that happens is we find out that Harry is a wizard. So that's quite a compelling part of the story, and that's very interesting. And then the next thing that we find out is he goes to Hogwarts. So he becomes a wizard. So that's the next sequence in the plot. And then we get there, and then Harry starts to find out about Voldemort. He starts to find out about what the Philosopher's Stone is. And then if we have a look at these kind of like plot sequences, so I think, for an example, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone would go into the quest bracket here. Not that all of them need to be identified, but Harry Potter is going out and he tries to find the Philosopher's Stone to defeat Voldemort. So that's probably kind of the crux of the story and what makes it so interesting. So can you see that in Harry Potter, we've kind of taken a step through kind of it. We've got the introduction. That's great. We find out that Harry's a wizard. It kind of gets more and more exciting, more and more exciting. We find out about Voldemort, which is very exciting. And then we find out about the Philosopher's philosopher's stone, and he goes on this quest and this journey, and that is the kind of essence of the story. Max, you have a question?
I've got another one.
You've got another one? Brilliant. That would be great.
In the Chamber of Secrets, he goes into the Chamber of Secrets, and then he gets bitten by the basilisk, and then he goes back.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly. So that's another example of a kind of quest as well. So you can see how these kind of, that's really, really good, Max. Well done for that. You can see how these kind of stories follow as a thing, because also if you think about it, say, for example, I was writing a story about Max, and my story was just, okay, so Max goes to school today, he wakes up, he goes to school, he comes home, and then the same thing happens again. So Max, he wakes up, has breakfast, goes to school, come home, has dinner, does his homework, goes to bed, the same thing over and over again. Who would want to read that story? Put your hand up if you'd want to just read a story about Max going to school every day. As exciting as you are, Max, I'm not sure anyone would want to read that. Exactly. So this is the kind of thing that, I mean, oh, is that Ethan? Are you saying that you would read it? Would you? I don't think as much as I'm sure as interesting as Max is, I'm not quite sure we'd want to read that. So that's kind of what I mean. It's as interesting as that would be. The most important thing is that you have some kind of like exciting parts to your plot line. So maybe one day Max goes to school and he uncovers a big secret, or you know, he fights an evil dark force, or he goes on a quest, or he does something, and that's the kind of essence of your story. That's what's going to be exciting, and that's what's going to keep your readers engaged. So that's what I kind of want you guys to think about, you know, when you're carry on writing story or you're doing creative writing. Kind of the fundamental thing is what is going to happen in your story, what is going to be the most exciting part about your story, what is going to make people read on, because Max going to school every day might not make everyone read on. So what is going to happen in your story? So hopefully everyone's feeling slightly more confident about that. So another way that you can look at it, as we've kind of talked about, are these plot building blocks, and we're going to look at a story mountain as well after this. So when you're thinking about your plot, one of the first things you can think about is you're going to have lots of these different blocks. So you might have an introduction. So in your introduction, and we're going to look at how to introduce stories as well in a minute. So you've got an introduction, and this often sets the scene of your story. It might introduce the main characters, it might introduce a setting, but it's how you begin your story, and it's going to be bold, and it's going to grab your reader's attention. And this is going to set the tone for the rest of your story. So your introduction almost is quite important, and we're going to talk about introductions as well in a moment, but that's going to be very important. Then there's at some point, so this might be where Max has to fight an evil dark force at school, or Max might get abducted, or something crazy is going to happen with Max in this story, and it's going to be the key moment in your plot, and this is going to be where the drama happens. So this, for example, in Harry Potter might be where he finds out, you know, where he has to fight Voldemort, or fight what's his name, Professor Quirrell, you know, for the Philosopher's Stone. Or it might be kind of in Matilda, where something to do with Miss Trunchbull, or I'm trying to think of the other books that anyone told us, you know, there's going to be a key moment in your story, and this is going to be so exciting. So prior to this key moment, there's kind of a lot of build up to it. Then you've got the key moment that happens, and that's going to be the really interesting part of your story. And then after that key moment, there's going to be a kind of conclusion or an outcome, or something's going to happen. And then if you really want to, if you decide you might be writing a couple of books or a couple of novels, you might either tie all the strings of the story together, or you could leave it on a cliffhanger. So you could leave it where kind of, you know, no one quite knows what's going to happen, and it's going to make someone buy your other books in the future. So is everyone okay with that? Is everyone feeling a bit more confident about building blocks? Can you give me another thumbs up? Give me the thumb. Okay, good. We've got lots more thumbs up this time. Brilliant. Okay, great. Oh, I'm really glad that you guys are on board with that, because your plot line is going to be really important. And everyone, please just make sure that, like, feel free to give me any thumb signal, because of course, like, I want to make sure that we can go over this so you can all understand it. Isabella, you have a question?
Is it true that sometimes the second stage, where the drama happens, can be quite long? Because sometimes if you travel around the world, it will take a very long time. Or if you fight something, it might take a year to do it. So that could happen. So the second stage could happen for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. Your key moment doesn't have to be a very short burst of a moment. It can, it can be last a bit longer. You might make it into a number of different books. Exactly. So well done, Isabella. Good question. And then I can see everyone that's just messaged me in the chat about their thumb signals. I can see that as well. So that's good. So this might kind of help everyone make sense of it more. And I'm going to upload this afterwards. So I don't know. Hopefully everyone knows how to do this. Is that a question, Ethan, or is that just a bit of hand movement?
I'm stretching.
You're stretching. That's fine. And then we've got a question from Aiden. Aiden, are you stretching, or have we got a question from you?
I used this.
You've used this before. Oh, brilliant. Well, you're going to be an absolute expert on this. So Aiden, actually, would you like...
I use help for it.
Use help for it. Would you like to explain to the rest of the class what the story mountain is?
A story mountain is something where you first, it usually says you have to introduce your character first and then put it where it starts. And then you first put the beginning and write about what do they do first. And then build up is something when they go for a hunt or something and then they get lost and then the problem, they've been chased by a wolf, and the resolution, they use a stick and smack the wolf, and cool. then the ending, they go back home.
Brilliant. So Ethan's given us a kind of depiction of a story which is going to use the story mountains. That's brilliant, Ethan. Well done. Sorry, Aiden, well done. And I know we've got a question from Ethan quickly. So I'll do that question, then I'll explain to you guys what the story mountain is. But well done, Aiden. That was brilliant. And yes, Ethan.
At school, I used a story mountain. It was a bit different about this one. It's only got 3 big squares. Plus, I've used the story mountains a lot in school, like 10,000 times.
Wow. Okay. Well, Ethan, you are going to be an absolute expert on this. So that's brilliant. And so for the rest of you that haven't used the story mountain before, this is just kind of a depiction of the plot that we've talked about. So what you'll do is I'm going to upload the story mountain, and I'm going to set you guys a bit of homework as well, which you can do, and then we can have a look at these. But the story mountain is kind of a plot planner. And if you're writing a story, it can be a kind of good way of kind of introducing your plot at the beginning, because I think the most important thing as well is planning your story. So this is a very good way to plan your plot to make sure you produce a really good story. So the first thing that you'll have, kind of as we talked about the plot building blocks, you have the beginning bit of your story, which is where you introduce your characters, describe the setting. We can think about some opening lines, and we're going to do this in a minute. We're going to look at how to introduce your story. Then you're going to have a bit of build up. So what happens next? Are there clues? What's said? How do you build up excitement? So Harry Potter, this might be him kind of like going to Hogwarts, finding out about Voldemort. This is kind of like setting the scene for what's going to happen. And then you've got the problem or dilemma. So this is going to be like the big thing that happens in your story. So it could be a fight between forces of good and bad. It could be the quest. It could be, anything at this point. Then we've got a bit of resolution, so what is the outcome? How is it resolved? Who wins the fight? All of those kind of things. And then you can tell us about the ending. So does the story end happily ever after? What have people learned? Maybe you could leave it on a cliffhanger, something like that. So what I'll do is I'll set you the homework at the very end, but I'll upload this picture of the story mountain. And I know Ethan is an expert on it. Aiden is an expert on it. And Chowie, yes, do you have a question?
I think I know one story that has a cliffhanger.
Ooh, what story has a cliffhanger?
The Wild Robot.
The Wild Robot. And why does the Wild Robot have a cliffhanger?
Because it has 2 books together, and I've only read the one of them. And then it ends with a cliffhanger because it just only says it only says that the robot is trapped in the machine and doesn't tell me anymore.
Ooh, and has that made you want to read the next book even more? Yeah, so Shawie's showed us a really good example of how a cliffhanger works in practice. So that's really good, Shawie. Well done. And then we've got a question from Isabella. Yeah, Isabella, what's your question?
Where are you going to upload everything?
So I upload it to Tutorbird. Hopefully you guys will be able to see that. But if there are any problems, what I'll do is I'll speak to Ying and I'll make sure that she emails your parents so you guys all know where to find everything. And so I'll put these slides. So I'll put all of these slides and these pictures on, and I'll upload that as well. And it will have the homework and stuff on it as well. So what I'll do is I'll email Ying to make sure that she emails all your parents so everyone knows where to find it. Is that okay, Isabella? Yeah, brilliant. So the next thing we're going to look at, does anyone know the difference, just before I go on to the next page, between a protagonist and an antagonist? Has anyone heard of those two words? Protagonist and antagonist. Has anyone heard of these? Is that Ethan? Is that your hand up? What's a protagonist and an antagonist?
I never heard of it.
You've never heard of it? Okay.
That's a weird word.
I know they are weird words, but I think this will be quite useful. Okay, so I'm going to say that no one has heard of it. Oh, have we got, is that Isabella? Do you think you know what it is? Isabella, what do you think it is?
I don't really have anything to say. I was actually just coughing.
Oh, I think it's the other Isabella. So I've got Isabella T. Sorry, you're Isabella Z. Sorry, I should have said Isabella T. I think might know this one. Yeah, Isabella T.
No, it's Isabella Sang, or you can call me Isabella too.
Okay, Isabella T. So what did you know the answer to this one? Was your hand up? Protagonist, antagonist?
But I only heard of protagonist.
Perfect, that's absolutely fine. And do you know what it is, or have you just heard of it?
I just heard of it.
You just heard of it. That's absolutely fine. So this is going to be quite key for when you guys are looking at your plot lines. So you'll have a protagonist versus an antagonist. So your protagonist and your antagonist are both essential characters in your story, but they propel the plot in different and usually opposite ways. So the protagonist works towards the central story goals. So your protagonist is essentially, kind of think of it as your goodie. So your goodie is your protagonist, and then your antagonist is your baddie. So those are kind of different ways that you can think of it. And so protagonist and antagonist are antonyms. So antonym means that these words mean the opposite thing. So your protagonist, think of your protagonist as being pro the goals of the story. So your protagonist is working towards them. He's your goodie. And your antagonist works against the goals of the story. Is everyone okay with that? Does that make sense to everyone? Can we do the thumb system? So we've got the green light from everyone. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, so we'll give it a little practice just to make sure that everyone knows, everyone can understand this. So what we'll do, if we just clear your thumb, if everyone just clears their thumbs, we have got the first picture here. So we'll start with Matilda, if anyone knows who Matilda is. So can anyone, yes, so shall we, is Matilda the protagonist or the antagonist?
Matilda is the protagonist. Her parents is the antagonist.
Yeah, so her parents could be the antagonist, and maybe Miss Trunchbull as well could be the antagonist. Brilliant, well done, Chowie. And then we've got Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games. Does anyone know who this one is? I know, Showie, I can see your hand is up. I'm just going to check if anyone else knows it. So does anyone else know this one before we let Showie go? Does anyone think she's good or she's bad? Does anyone know? Okay, Showie, off you go. You tell us.
I don't know, but I think I've seen a girl like her in my newspapers, and I think she's a protagonist.
Yes, she is the protagonist. So maybe you guys haven't seen the Hunger Games or read the book of the Hunger Games. Maybe it's a bit older, but yeah, so she's the protagonist. So she works towards the good things. Ethan, we've got a question from you. Yeah.
I know Harry Potter is a protagonist.
Yeah, exactly. So Harry Potter is a protagonist. Very, very good. Well done. And how about Darth Vader? We've got Isabella Z.
Wait, is that the baldy?
Which one, sorry?
Is it the bald person?
It's the person with the black helmet on.
Oh, that's antagonist.
That's antagonist, yes, exactly. You're very, very right. And then we've got Scooby-Doo. So we've got Scooby-Doo and the gang. Max, is your hand up for that one? No, your hand's not up for that one. I know, let's see, Aiden, is your hand up for that one? Do you know Scooby-Doo? So we've got like Velma, Shaggy, Fred, Daphne, and Scooby. Are they protagonists?
No, I was going for Darth Vader.
You're going for Darth Vader. No worries about that. Does anyone else?
I do know that Harry Potter was protagonist because I watched a bit of it, but when it went longer and longer, I found it got very scary, so I turned it off.
That's fine. I think Shawi's going to tell us anyway, so don't worry. Well done, Aidan. Yeah, Shawi, what do you think?
I think you're the protagonist, even though I haven't watched it. My teacher once, another teacher, told me that about this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well done. And then we've got Cruella de Vil. I think, let's just see if anyone hasn't answered that one. Isabella T.
Protagonist.
Cruella, do you think Cruella's the protagonist or the antagonist? Is she the goodie or the baddie?
I think it's bad or good, but I think it's protagonist.
Okay. Does anyone else think any different? Does anyone else think the same? Max, what do you think? Is that Max? Did you want to say? Max, I think you might be on mute.
I know what the bold one is.
Okay, you can answer the next one. Okay, other Isabella Z, what do you think Cruella is?
Antagonist, and I sent it into chat.
Did you? Brilliant. Yes, you did, Isabella. Well done. So actually, Isabella Z is right. So Cruella de Vil is the antagonist. So remember in 101 Dalmatians, she tries to steal the dog. She's not a very nice lady. So she's kind of working against the goals. So the protagonist would kind of be the Dalmatians and the Dalmatians owners, and the antagonist would be Cruella de Vil because she's kind of working against the goals. And then Max, finally, Voldemort, protagonist, antagonist.
Antagonist.
Brilliant. Well done. I think everyone has got the hang of that. So that's really, really good. You've all done a brilliant job there, and well done for your contribution. So that's excellent. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look. So we've looked at kind of creating the plot line for your story, which is brilliant. And we're going to upload the story mountain, and that's something you guys will be able to think about, which is excellent. So the next thing that we need to think about is kind of having chosen your plot and kind of having introduced your kind of storyline and thought about the way that you're going to do it. I want you guys to think about how you're going to introduce your story. So what is the first line of your story going to be? So what I thought we could do is have a little brainstorm. What do you guys think makes a good introduction to a story? And you can just pop your hands up and shout out. And so if anyone raises their hand, say, what do you think makes a good introduction to a story? When you've read a story, what is it that you've read that you thought, oh, wow, I really want to continue this? Yes, Isabella Z.
So I think this is a good sentence.
Mm-hmm.
This is a sentence I made up. Maxwell Harrison, a normal boy, was a very normal boy, except he had a very unusual life.
Yes, brilliant.
And a very weird voice.
And why do you think that makes a good story? Because that's a really good introduction. And tell me why you think that makes a good introduction.
Because I think it'll make the reader think, how did her sister get a very weird voice?
Exactly. So immediately the reader's kind of questioning why. Does anyone else, well done, Isabella, does anyone else have any thoughts about what they think makes a good introduction? Anyone? We'll go through it anyway if you don't. Okay. So good story openings make us want more information, exactly like Isabella just said. So these are really good because they make us want more information. They want to know, why is he not an ordinary boy, or why has something happened? A good story opening can introduce the theme of your book or your story. It might make a bold statement. It could set your story development in motion. It can set the tone. It can give context, and it can introduce us to the narrator's voice. So we're going to have a look at some examples of some story openings as well. So let's just talk about why the story opening is important. So the first few lines of any piece of writing are essential because they set the tone and hopefully make the reader want to read on. And this is really important. This is known as the hook. So what I want you guys to do is when you first start thinking about how you're going to introduce your story and the first line, I want you to think about how you're going to hook the reader. What are you going to do that's going to make them want to keep on reading? Because I really want you to think about that, because you want to, within, you know, how people will pick up a book, you kind of decide whether you're going to like a book kind of quite quickly. You might look at the first few lines, and I really want you to think about what is going to make your reader want to read on. So I really want you to think about the hook, and this is quite an important thing. So remember the word hook. So would anyone like to read this extract? So what we'll do is I've got some examples of some introductions. So we can just take it in turn to read these. So who would like to read this one from Danny, the Champion of the World? Yes, Ethan, would you like to read this one?
When I was 4 months old, my mother died suddenly, and my father was left to look after me all by himself.
Yes, exactly. And this is quite a good example of a kind of hook, because immediately you're told that he was 4 months old and his mother died. So immediately you're thinking, how did his mother die? Kind of, who is he? And then he says, my father was left to look after me all by myself. So immediately you're already asking yourself kind of a lot of questions. So what's happened here? What's the relationship between his mother? What's the relationship with his father? Those kind of things. So that's kind of a really interesting way that Roald Dahl has hooked the reader, and we're going to have a look at lots of different examples of those. So don't worry, there's going to be plenty of examples for everyone to keep reading. So the first line should leave the reader asking a question. This question can invite the reader to keep reading. So who would like to read this next one? Any volunteers? Yes, Isabella Z.
I disappeared on the night before my 12th birthday.
Good. And why do you think that that's an interesting hook introduction?
Because it makes the reader think, how did he disappear and why?
Yes, brilliant. Exactly. So you're already leaving them asking questions and wanting to know even more. I think that's just a picture. Cool. So how should you begin? So we've looked at kind of a couple of ways that you can do this. So one of the ways that you can begin, let me just check. Oh, that's why they're all coming. So one of the ways that you can begin is by a description of a character. So I might just start picking people. Shawi, would you like to read this one?
I was just saying that I actually read this before.
You've read this before. I'd highly recommend The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. You guys might know it as Narnia, but I definitely would recommend this book. So one of the ways you can do this, and Shawi, would you like to read it in just 1 second? So one way that you can introduce your story is by introducing the characters that you have in your story. So this might be a good way to begin. So would you like to read that, Shawi?
Okay.
Yeah.
Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy.
Brilliant, exactly. So C.S. Lewis begins his story of Narnia, or The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, with this introduction. And I'd actually highly recommend The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe if anyone has or hasn't read it. Isabella Z, are you telling me that you've read it? Oh, you might be on mute. Yeah.
Yes, and it's really good.
It's really good. Yeah, I think this is good. It's also great if you guys can recommend other books. Also, does anyone know what the book before Narnia, before The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is called? It's really good. Yeah, do you know it, Isabella? Because I can't quite remember.
I'm not really sure either, but I actually think it's The Magician's Nephew.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And for those of you who perhaps it's quite a long book or it might be a bit tricky, I'd actually recommend the audiobooks as well. That could be a good way to learn, but they're really, really good. And I definitely would recommend the one that comes before The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. It's really, really good. There are some really good characterizations in there. And that's kind of interesting because one book kind of leads on to the next, but in different time zones. So I'd highly recommend that book. Well done, everyone. So the next way you could begin. So you could begin with a description of a setting. So does anyone, before I tell you which book this is from, can anyone tell me where it's from this picture? Does anyone recognize this? Yeah, Isabella, Zed, do you recognize it?
An ordinary street with ordinary cars and ordinary houses. An ordinary.
I think you're right. I think that's how the Philosopher's Stone begins, but I think this might be this might be another one. So that's exactly. So this is Privet Drive. So who would like to read out this introduction? I know you've already done lots of Isabella. So I'm actually going to pick on someone. I'm going to pick on Ada. I'm going to pick on Isabella T.
The hottest day of the summer so far was owing to a close and a rosy silence lay over the large square house of Privet Drive.
Brilliant. Well done, Isabella T. That was amazing. So this is another way that you could begin. So we've looked at introducing it with a character, or you could introduce it with a setting. And I think, as Isabella Z said, this might have been something that happened in Think the Philosopher's Stone as well. So this is kind of interesting. So that was beautifully read, Isabella T. And this is an example of another way that you could introduce your story. So this is through a setting. So that's really, really good. Well done. Then I think the next one is a combination of a description of a setting and a character. So I'm just going to see who I'm going to pick on for this one. I think I want okay, so this one's going to be Aiden, and the next one's going to be Aiden Lee. So this one is Aiden, A-D-E-N, Aiden. So let's get it up. There you go.
So this is allowed 1,000 miles ago in a country east of the jungle and south of the mountains. There lived a firework maker called Lunch Hand, his daughter Lila, yeah, exactly. Very, very good. And this is from the Firework Maker's Daughter. So kind of the other books that he does as well is The Golden Compass. And I think, Shawi, your hand was raised. Did you have a question?
I've read this book before.
Read this book before. Brilliant. And Isabella Z, are you telling me the same thing? Have you read it too?
Yes, and it's also in a collection called Four Tales.
Oh, is it? And has that got the Golden Compass in it too? Has that got all of them in it?
No, but it's also by Philip Pullman. It has the red scarlet slippers, clockwork, and this. I'm not really sure, but something about a scarecrow in the
night. Very good. So I'd highly recommend Philip Pullman as well. I think he's very, very good author as well. So that's brilliant. So we've done a description of a character, or a description of a setting, or a description of a setting and a character. So these are kind of some different ways. Next, you could have action. So I think we said that we were going to do Aiden Lee for this one. Aiden Lee.
Peter crouched over the fire, stirring the embers so that the sparks warmed up the imps of the rocky wall of hell.
Brilliant. Well read, Aiden. That was brilliant. So another way that you could begin is action. So this is the action of him doing something. So that's brilliant. So he stirs over the fire. So that's a good way of doing it. Next, you could have dialogue. So we're going to have Max for this one.
I'm going shopping in the village, George's mother said to George on Saturday morning. So be a good boy and don't get up to mischief.
Brilliant. Well done, Max. That was excellent. And then let's go with Ethan. This one's a little bit silly. Ethan.
Ever had the feeling your life being flushed down the toilet?
Yeah. And why do you think this is an interesting introduction? Or do you think this is
because it makes people want to read it? It's quite funny.
Yeah, exactly. So who else, if just from having read this, would anyone else think that they would want to read The Toilet of Doom? I think I probably would. I think it's quite funny. Yeah. Good. Brilliant. And the last one, is anyone not been yet? Has anyone not read one? Let me check. Pounds up if you haven't read one. Ethan, you look like you're trying to read one again, or are you trying to go in and out of space? Okay, who would like to read this one then? If we've all been, who would like to read this one? Let's go with Aiden. I'm not sure which Aiden it is. Aiden, with your hand up right now.
It's a funny thing It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most disgusting little blister you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful.
Brilliant. And why do you guys think that this could be a good introduction to Matilda? So Matilda is one of my favorite books. I think it's so funny. And I think that Roald Dahl, if anyone hasn't read any Roald Dahl, I would highly recommend it. And also later on in some of our lessons, we're going to kind of have a look at them in the context of Roald Dahl and see what Roald Dahl does. Ethan, is that hand up? Are you just going to tell us about
I read the James and the Giant Peach and Charlie and Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
And I watched the movie of Charlie and Chocolate Factory. That's the Squeak fell into the waterfall.
Yeah,
Chocolate waterfall.
He did, yeah, exactly. Shawi, do you have a question as well? Thank you, Ethan. You have a question, Shawi? Or anything you want to say?
I've read in all of the Roald Dahl books.
You've read all of the Roald Dahl books, and which one's your favourite?
My favourite is Matilda.
Matilda, my favourite's Matilda too. And then we've got Isabella Z. Did you want to say something?
So I read Matilda and the Giant Peach and the Chocolate Factory. I watched the Chocolate Factory and something called maybe all the witches.
Yeah, witches is a really good one. And which one's your favourite?
My favorite is Matilda because that one, even I watch it too.
You watched it too, yeah, it's a good film as well, isn't it? I like Miss Trunchbull in it. And then we've got other Isabella as well. Yeah, what would you like to say?
I've got all the Roald Dahl books, and I read almost every single one.
Oh my goodness! And which one's your favorite? I can't remember. I think you did tell me.
Witches. I like witches best.
I like witches too. We're actually going to have a look at maybe the witches when we look at some characters. And then we've got questions from Aidan.
I've got these.
Oh my goodness, have you all of them? Wow. So you've got the Twits, Witches, BFG, James and the Giant Peach. Can't quite see all of them. Yeah, so for anyone that hasn't read these guys, I would highly recommend. And Aidan, oh, fantastic, Mr. Fox from Aidan. That's brilliant as well. Very good. Well, I would highly, highly, highly recommend all of the Roald Dahl books as well. I'd highly recommend those. That's brilliant. Well done, everyone. So just as a little recap, so the opening of your story, so it's brilliant that we've looked at all of those. So the opening of your story should normally tell the reader. So either where and when the story is set. So you're kind of giving us a bit of context, maybe the tone, introduce that. And you can do that through introducing the characters. Then you can also kind of choose what kind of style and mood you want for your story. So is your story going to be a happy story? Is it going to be a scary story? Is it going to be a sad story? So that's kind of one of the interesting ways that you can do that. So don't forget that your opening should have a hook. Can anyone remind me what the hook is? Anyone tell me what the hook of your story is? Yes, Isabella Z.
It's kind of like the opening sentence where the reader wants to read on more.
Brilliant, exactly. And Max, would you like to add anything to that? Because your hand was up as well.
Yes, I was going to say that as well.
You're going to say that as well. Brilliant. So it's something that's going to keep your reader interested and make them want to read even more. And then we're going to use a story writing prompt to help write with the rest of the homework. So I'll explain the homework to you in a minute. I think what we'll do is just recap everything, some of the things that we've done so far. So we had a look at the Story Mountain, and the Story Mountain I'm going to upload again for homework. But just to go over this, I want you to think of your plot of your story. So this lesson, we've looked at the plots of the story. So I want you to think of the plot as the engine of your story. It's kind of the direction that's going to move in. So we talked about the story of Max going to school every day and it not being particularly exciting, even though Max is obviously very exciting. So we talked about that. So we talked about something actually needing to happen in your story. So we've kind of got, as in the example of the Story Mountain, you need some build up. You need something that's going to happen. There's going to be some excitement. And then there's going to be a problem, a dilemma. There could be a mystery. Something terrible could happen. You could find out about a kind of antagonist. The antagonist is the bad horse in our story. Then there'll be a resolution, and then there'll be some sort of ending, which could either end on a cliffhanger. And who was it that was telling me about cliffhangers? Was that Shawi that was telling me that? About the robot and the cliffhanger? Was that, yeah? So Shawi was telling us a really good example of a cliffhanger and how your story can kind of be in, kind of lead on to the next story and make that interesting. So I really want you guys to think about the plot and think about how you're really going to captivate your reader, and think about the kind of things that are going to make it really exciting for them to keep reading. Then, so we did have a look at the plot. We had a little look at protagonists and antagonists. Can anyone tell me the difference between these quickly? Yeah, we got Shawi.
Protagonists are good and antagonists are bad.
Yeah, exactly. So your protagonist works towards the central story goals, your antagonist works against them. Brilliant. Then we had a lots of different ways that we could introduce your story. So we had by kind of asking, letting the reader ask a question. So you got, I disappeared on the night before my 12th birthday. Why? And then we've got description of a character, description of a setting, description of a setting and a character. Then we had action. Then we had dialogue. So that's people speaking to each other. A question, a statement, and then we had a little recap as well. So just at the end, I'm just going to explain the homework, and then if anyone has any questions, you can ask those as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the Story Mountain, which is what we looked at earlier, and I'm going to upload that to the Tutorbird website. And what I'll do is I will speak to Ying to make sure that she emails your parents so you all know where that is. And so I'm going to upload the PDF of the Story Mountain, and I want you guys to start filling this in. So print it out and start filling it in, and you can upload this to me as well if you want me to have a look at it, and I can mark it for you before the lesson. So kind of what I thought the aim of our lesson aim of our lessons this week could be is that we would each day kind of do a different segment of the story. So today I want you to think about the plot line, and hopefully by the end of the week you guys will have a fully fledged story. So today what I want you to do is think about the plot line of your story. So I want you to think about kind of what's going to be interesting about it, and this will act as a base for the rest of the week. So it'd be brilliant if you can fill that in. Isabella, you have a question. Isabella Z, yeah.
Are you going to upload the homework onto the app where you're going to upload it?
Yeah, so I'll upload the slides from this lesson, a PDF, so I'll upload all of this and a specific picture of the Story Mountain which you can print out. Is that okay? Brilliant. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to start filling out the Story Mountain, because later on in the week we'll start adding our characters, we'll start adding our settings, have a think of some literary devices, maybe some onomatopoeia, some imagery, similes, metaphors, things like that. So does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask from today before I let you go? Yes, Isabella Z.
So how much do we need to fill in from, the Story Mountain for homework?
You can fill in as much as you like. You can write it in bullet points. You can write it a bit more full, literally whatever you like. You don't even have to have a fully, finished plot. Just want you to have a little think about the kind of thing that you might choose to do. So it's just really a thinking exercise. So you guys will be able to write a plot later in the week. But if you don't have time or you don't want to submit it, equally, you don't have to. Maybe just speak to your parents and ask them what they would like you to do. And does anyone have any questions? Ethan, is that a question from you?
Why can't you record the session?
I think the sessions are recorded.
No, it's not. It said it's not. When I pressed record, it said, please ask the host to give you permission to record.
Oh, I think it already is recorded. So if you want, I think I personally won't have the recording, but Oxbridge Elite Education will have it. So I'm sure you could email for the recording if you want.
I do see a recording at the top. If you see a tick at the top left right corner, you can see a word called recording.
Yeah, so I'm sure if you'd like the recording, I'm sure you could ask for it. What I'll do is
I can see it.
Yeah, I'll ask Ying, and if you'd like it, you can have it. Yes, Isabella Z.
And the recording, it's me that's recording. I can just see a red button flashing on and off with recording next to it.
Yes, I think it is recording. So if anyone wants the recording, I would suggest that you email and ask for it. So just as we finish the session, because I don't want to keep your summer holidays any longer, so I'll just stop sharing this. Does anyone have any more questions that they would like to ask?
I want to do
good.
speaker.
Okay, cool. So if anyone has any questions or anything else that you would like, just let me know. Aiden, is that a question?
In this session, I've been drawing this a bit, actually.
Oh, wow. I can't quite see it, but it looks lovely.
It's kind of like wall.
Oh, maybe that could be a good inspiration for your plot line. Very good.
Antagonist.
Yeah, exactly. Antagonist. Very good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys go. And I will see you all exactly this time again tomorrow. So I'll upload the things to Tutorbird. I'll ask Ying to make sure that you guys will know where that is.
My test is about to fall out.
And if you guys have any more questions or anything else you'd like to ask, just feel free to email me or pop Ying an email and she'll be able to speak to me as well. But I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day. Aiden, is that a question?
My teeth is only almost falling out.
Oh my goodness. Hopefully it won't fall out in one of our lessons. Brilliant. Well done, everyone. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Bye.
Well done, everyone.